How's it going, everyone? It's Juan Romero here from Switchwatch, back with another review. It's Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen. Jordan put out a gameplay video of that yesterday in docked and handheld. You might want to check that out. That's at the top right link now. And also I want to give credit to both Contra Network, who have helped with this video, and also Keith Lavelle, who have helped with the writing of this review. Reason being is he's completed it 2 times on other consoles. I've also completed it and played this Switch version, so putting our heads together we thought would make a better review. Let's get into it and check out if it's worth your time and investment. So as I said, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to start this review much like I did Darksiders. I think the best thing from now on is when these older ports come along is we go straight into visuals and performance. Now you can check out the Darksiders review by clicking on the top hand corner. As I said, I've enlisted Contra Network. Here is the permission to use their video, and I'd like to give my personal thanks to Luigi Caballero. If you want to check out their channel, then do so, because they produce some awesome gameplay videos and comparisons like this, so make sure you subscribe to them as well. Now, they were able to ascertain the FPS. I've also done my own checks, and you can see that this game in both handheld and docked runs at around 30 frames per second. But it does drop into the early 20s when things get a little bit hectic on screen, which is of course to be expected. While this is not a brand new game, I have myself found the performance to be at a pretty good standard. It could be better, and it's certainly not perfect at times, but I also think that this has a lot to do with the original game itself. Now, in the Switch version, I noticed quite a lot of pop-up, especially when going into town, and people will all of a sudden appear after a few seconds. The Switch is obviously loading it up in the background. Whilst running through the beach, you'd see crates that would appear out of nowhere right in front of you. However, you know, this is a large game. There is quite a lot going on, and, you know, it does run pretty well. These are just some nitpicks that I found along the way. Now, I'm glad a lot of the lighting effects and shadow effects have made it to the port, while many of you would question and say, well, why would you get rid of those in the first place? Well, for most of the time when you do these ports, or when the developers are doing these ports, turning the effects down when the hardware is limited in comparison to other hardware like PS4, PC, Xbox One, etc. The game would run smoother if they do this. It's a shame that we don't have like a Darksiders type option where you can turn it up to 60 frames per second and then have a dip in the quality, or run 30 frames per second but have higher quality. But fear not, the detail is pretty good for the Switch version, and if you're thinking of purchasing this but were worried about the performance, or you're thinking of double dipping and you want to play this on the move, then that's why I wanted to cover this part first, because I think this part is important for you who are looking at this aspect of the review, which is why I wanted to start here. Fear not, as I say, it's playable, it's decent, especially for the price. It's not too bad considering the amount of hours you're going to get. Now, for the rest of you who are brand new to this game, we're going to continue our review now as normal and go into story, gameplay, audio, and the value. Let's hope you stick around. In the village of Gransys, our protagonist is attacked by a dragon, taking his heart and leaving him with a scar in its place. The protagonist remains alive surprisingly after this, marking them as the Arisen, a figure destined to face the dragon and stop the incoming apocalypse. This is the overarching story of Dragon's Dogma. Don't fear though, this is the tip of the iceberg, and you can either get those quests and follow that mainline story to finish the game quickly within around 35 hours, or take on those side quests, or a mixture of both to make the game longer for you. In terms of gameplay then, Dragon's Dogma is an action RPG set in a third-person world perspective. If you imagine Dark Souls, then that'll give you an idea of what this is. The game is also hard. You can have a party of up to 4 characters, set in a more open world, and you'll have a sort of idea of what this is. With all good RPGs, there is a character creator in Dragon's Dogma. This one does not disappoint. The protagonist's sex, general body type, voice, name and moniker for players with parental settings can be picked. And once these are done, it's time to customize that protagonist's hair, face shape, eyes and so on from a preset list around 35 to 40 different pre-made features for each part. Height, weight and muscles can also be altered, and then there's adding scars and tattoos and altering the colours. I had a lot of fun with the voices, too much fun for such a simple thing. The first time I played Dragon's Dogma, I spent almost an hour just playing around with the characters, because not only the protagonist is your pawn that you can change around too. You've got classes that you can choose: fighter, a strider or a mage, each one having their advantages and disadvantages. Of course, you've got advanced classes and mixed classes too. All classes can be used with the main character. Leveling up with a class will level up different statistics. For instance, if you level up being a fighter, that's going to boost your health and melee attack, whereas a mage will increase magic power and defense. The classes also rank up as they are played. Ranks unlock different augments. These augments can be used by other classes unless weapon specific. Unlike in many RPGs, new abilities are automatically learnt here. It's a little bit different. While fighting, there is experience points given after killing an enemy, and discipline points are allocated as a percentage of the XP learnt. DP is used to unlock new abilities, job augments, and the pawn and protagonist have their own DP pools. When it comes to pawns, they can also change class, but only basic and advanced. Pawns do not have access to mixed classes. And when I'm talking about pawns, these are loyal servants to the protagonist. Basically, well, there's a lot more to them. These also have a multiplayer aspect in Dragon's Dogma. Bear with me and I'll explain that in a second. Now, once a pawn has been created at the first rift stone that you come across, it's then possible to enter the rift, and there'll be a load of pawns walking around, and if you look them in the eye, you can have a conversation and choose to add them to your party. Now, many of these pawns are actually made from other players, and this is where I talk about the online aspect of the game. If a pawn is at the protagonist's current level or lower, the pawn will be free to hire. If the pawn is higher level, then there's going to be a cost, and this also goes for your own made pawn too. The pawns are vital for the success in Dragon's Dogma. Firstly, your pawn needs to be upgraded, leveled up like you are, so you have to spend money. And look, there's a lot of cost that comes to keeping it all up. Secondly, you've got to make sure that you take your time on picking the right pawns to fill those vital roles. If you have a lower level pawn, it's going to be more of a hindrance than a help. Now, the fights themselves are, if you played games like this before, you're going to be familiar with it. You've got your light and heavy attacks, run abilities, jump and grab. Stamina, of course, is important in this game. Run too much and you're going to run out of breath. And also, when you come up against enemies, it's important that you keep that stamina topped up, because you want to climb some of the larger ones so you can get that better angle at taking them out. Now, within the world of Dragon's Dogma, enemies come in all shapes and sizes. There's humans, goblins, wolves, giant cyclops, and some of the enemies can be mounted when they are big, as I said. Dragons, for instance, there's a lot of wonderful and terrifying things wanting to kill you, and a lot will. Along with this, there's the day and night cycle, where enemies are different depending on whether it's night or day. With this setting, it's something out of the Middle Ages. Dark means dark, and enemies will be outside of the limelight, and it's really dangerous to go outside when dark. They are cloaked in the pitch of night, needless to say, but nighttime travel is only for the hardy or the desperate of travellers. Dragon's Dogma is one of those games which is truly epic in scale. You can easily get 100 hours out of this game if you want to. If you're one of those people that just likes to explore and adventure, you've got that. You can do that. Go out and just kill enemies just for loot if you wanted to. For those people that love to upgrade their party, there's lots of money that you can find, and you can just upgrade, get better weapons, get better equipment, so you can explore more dangerous areas. And for those of you that like story, there's lots of quests, and the mainline adventure here, or the story, is really cool to follow as well. So it's something, as I say, for absolutely everybody. I think the game definitely has you covered, and most of the mechanics work well, and it is fun. The soundtrack for this game has such scope for such a grand game. It's recorded by roughly 130 musicians and choir singers of the Sofia Philharmonic Orchestra. It does not disappoint, and the music is simply outstanding. Big grand performances for a grand game. The game is fully voice acted apart from the protagonist. It's not the best in the world, I have to say. A lot of the NPCs seem like they've just woken up from a heavy night on the town, but then again, with what's going on, How can you be surprised?
Our fealty is sworn to you, Arisen. From this day, the Legion's men called pawns live and die by your command.
Arisen. Stone. Strange. It may come to naught, but we might seek the stone on the shelves of Gransys' shops.
The sound effects are great too, from the running around on the grass to the shouting of the goblins. It's all crisp and sounds good. There's many noises that create that ambience just when you're running around in town or whether you're out in the fields at night. I could go on for ages about each individual thing. Some of the best noises though have to be the spells within the game. They sound so good. Explosions, lighting, sound. It sounds forceful. The audio is of course of high quality and it stood the test of time. And the music would be at home in any Grand Fantasy game. In terms of value then, this game is $29.99 or £24.99. I think for this game and this port, it's a fair price. You're getting a lot of bang for your buck here. That is for sure. You're not going to be disappointed if you spend the money. So I certainly recommend it at this price. What I would say though is if you're one like me who wants that physical edition, I haven't seen anything in the UK as yet. But if you go over to Play Asia, you can order the physical edition. There's also a special edition, and I'll just put those prices up now for you and the links down below in the description. So for the US version, you're looking at around £24.18. For the special edition, it's about £40.31 if you want the special edition, which it looks like they're only selling in Japan, which is a real shame because it looks absolutely awesome. Dragon's Dogma is one of those games that you should certainly consider on the Nintendo Switch if you haven't played it before. And if you have, then you need to consider whether a double dip is worth it. Well, it depends if you want to take the game on the move or not. It certainly shows its age a little bit and it's not perfect. There are some technical issues. Barring those aside though, the game is still thoroughly enjoyable. It's going to give you loads of hours of gameplay. Audio is great and the value's there. So, in that note, it's an 8 out of 10 from me. If you enjoyed this review, ladies and gentlemen, then hit that thumbs up. If you're an existing watcher, thank you so much for your continued support. If you are new here though, why not consider subscribing for future reviews like this one. I'll put some reviews up above now so you can check out some of our other videos. Again, I want to thank Contra Network and I want to also thank Keith Lavelle for helping to write this review and for us to get it out today for you, ladies and gentlemen. We do hope you enjoyed it. My name is Juan Romero and I'll see you again very soon on the next one. Take care.